Alright, so step one in the four-door Defender build is going to be cutting along the body lines. So this can be very tedious, but if you have a really sharp blade and a steady hand, well, even if you really don't, you can usually sand your way out of most issues that'll come to it. But basically we're going to be cutting right here on this body line where the door meets up with the rest of the body. Then we're going to be cutting along this ridge line right down there in that gap all the way to the door. And then for the back portion, we'll be cutting off this door hinge, and we're going to run a tape line from this body line all the way across just over the top of this hole so that we leave just a little bit there. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to cut about 1/8 of an inch from the back. Well, we're really not cutting it, we're scoring all of this so that we can snap it. But we're going to cut that all the way down. You can draw a tape line on that or eyeball that one. But the straighter you get that cut is a lot less sanding you have to do, and that goes for the rest of these cuts. So let's speed this up and we'll get to cutting. Alright, so now that we've got it cut, we cut along the door, along this back panel here. We've still got a lot of little trimming to do. We're trying to get these areas cleaned up so the fit and finish is better. We're going to be trying to clean this area up. But most importantly, you won't notice it a ton when it's done, but you want to make sure that the back end sits square. Edges squared, so that they will sit close together. We also don't want this edge to be any higher than this edge, because that's what our roof is going to sit down on. Alright, so we've cut our roof, we've assembled everything, we've sanded our roof so it fits on there now. Next step we're going to do is add some little bracing underneath the tonneau cover. So we'll sand this area all the way around it. Leave about a 1/2 inch space on either side of this, or you'll have issues. You'll have to trim the fenders anyway to get that screw to be able to go through anyhow. But we'll go ahead and add these on, and then we'll trim our tonneau cover so that it fits on there. Alright, so now we've got our tonneau cover on, we've got our bracing underneath. That gives it a lot more stability, keeps it from flexing a whole lot more. The next thing we're going to be doing is cutting the windows. So with the windows, we're going to be cutting about a 1/16 of an inch behind this back window. That'll be going down, and about a 1/16 above, and that'll run all the way to this ridge. And then this ridge we're going to cut all the way across. May not be completely necessary, but it helps it fit in there a lot more flush, and it makes assembly a lot easier. And for the back windows, what we're going to do is initially trim just on this side of it. And then what you'll see in the time lapse is I actually go through and trim it so that it's flush with the outside of this window. And then the bottom I'll trim up just a hair. Once again, just makes for easier assembly. And then that's going to finish out the windows, and then we can move on to the roof rack. So a couple last steps here that we're going to be doing is actually cutting the roof rack. So the roof rack is cut right behind the cab, and in this case it'll be these bars. And then we'll actually be saving these little nubs. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I find that it makes it a lot more rigid, and it also holds the back window in, because we left these holes on the back side of our cab. So we'll leave those nubs. Let's go ahead and cut this roof rack. Alright, so the last step for the roof rack before final assembly is going to be to get it from looking like this to a nice little angle that still remains rigid. So how we accomplish that, you will find that one of these is centered, one of the tabs is centered, and the other one is offset. That offset goes towards the front. So in this case, this would be the right side. So what we're going to do is come to the back with the offset one, and cut it in the top corner. Now from here, I'm going to heat up about a little better than 1/4 of an inch past this And on this bottom side, I'm going to heat up just over the horizontal bar. And when I heat that up, I'll actually take a pair of pliers and I'll grab a hold of it and bend it down till it sits almost flush or horizontal along with that bar. And this one will be done similar, but in that fashion, and then we'll bend it down. Alright, for the assembly of these back bars, we're going to be using this super cheap kit, marine heat shrink, and it's going to be one of these 1/8 inch. The reason you use this marine heat shrink is because it has adhesive inside, and that's going to help you out a ton. There's a lot less gluing that has to be done, things to that nature. So it makes it a lot more robust because these are actually pretty tough little things to bend and even harder to reconnect. I'm going to be cutting off of this top bar. And so what I'm looking to do, first I'll trim it flush as I can with a knife on this bottom one. There we go. At least something for the super glue to grab a hold of. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making sure that this vertical and this horizontal bar are at 90 degrees. That's how you get good angles. Roughly the right size. The thing you're looking for is to be able to slide this piece up, in which case it'll be cut off here. So slide it up and over this bend so that you can still glue it and make sure that's in the right area. Then you can slide this down, and I slide it down, you'll see in the time lapse, almost to about 1/8 of an inch before that turn, and then you hit it with the heat gun or the